The NBA playoffs of 2019 are about to come to a close, and as it continues to progress, we as NBA fans see Drake, the #1 rapper in the world, at the forefront. Now, the way that he has been seen has been interesting. As the Raptors made their way through the Eastern Conference, Drake has become more and more visible, up to the point of this. This is where Drake rocketed his way into the national spotlight, where he literally made 3 different ESPN segments and drew conversation from like everybody anywhere in the NBA world. There were people on all different types of the spectrum, from Stephen A. to Mike Budenholzer, the opposing coach, who reacted to this, and it's only gotten better or worse from there. Drake has been in the playoffs conversations throughout its entirety, mainly in the form of the so-called drake-carys, where any team that he roots for ends up losing. After Toronto's success, however, all talk of that is pretty much gone. All that's left is the finals, and whatever Drake does next isn't going to hurt the Raptors at all. Whatever he does next is gonna help himself, the Raptors, and the NBA as a whole. Drake's been doing this a long time. Just look up Drake Toronto Raptors on YouTube and you'll find a variety of outbursts and reactions from courtside of Raptors games all throughout these past few years. But why is he able to get away with it? In 2016, he basically tried to fight Kendrick Perkins while he was still on the Cavaliers. Kendrick Perkins. Yes, big body. For this, the NBA issued a written warning telling him to watch his, quote, use of bad language. The league also talked to President Masai Ujiri about it personally, but there was no punishment. In 2014, Drake held a concert where he tampered in the most public way possible by
I just wanted to see what would happen if he came to play in Toronto. Let him know what would happen.
The league fined him and the Raptors $25,000 and offered to drop the fine if the Raptors cut ties with him. They declined. Looking at it from an immediate perspective, you could say that it doesn't make that much sense to keep a guy who looks to be off the hinges when you're a multi-billion-dollar organization with a country to represent. It's entirely possible for Drake to do something that brings down the image of the Raptors with one little scandal or fight that casts the league or the players or the owners in a bad light. The worst thing that could happen is that he gets caught in the rapper stereotype, where he commits a crime or is caught with drugs, something that may concern some audiences of the NBA. But looking at it in the long term, or the grand scheme of promotion and branding, Drake is the very best thing that could happen to the Toronto organization. In 2013, they appointed him as their global ambassador, basically the figurehead behind the rebranding that they underwent beginning in 2013. Which consisted of a new culture, a plan that worked out quite well. Toronto fans are some of the best in the league, as seen with DeRozan and now Kawhi. October's very own Drake's company has had a very heavy hand in operations involving the Raptors. For example, the Raptors occasionally host Drake Night and have uniforms fashioned in OVO colors. As this global ambassador, Drake's job is basically to be himself, as long as he's promoting and supporting the Toronto Raptors. And supporting and promoting he is. The later 2000s, in the era of the Spurs and Lakers and Mavericks and Heat, pretty much had the Raptors completely out of American conversation. This was quite long after Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter left, and the team was trying its best to compete with the remaining talent in Chris Bosh. He then left for Miami, and Toronto was left grasping at straws in order to try and remain relevant. It took some years, and while they still did have the support of Canada behind them, they were bad. For 3 years after Bosh left, they didn't win more than 35 games, if even that. From 2010 up to 2013, they were in the bottom half of attendance for the league, while being the only city in the country that had a professional basketball team. During this period, however, they acquired DeRozan and Lowry, and Masai Ujiri's plan was put into play. They were on the rise, but Toronto was about as irrelevant as it got in the American NBA, and this would be a problem, no matter how good they got. Lucky for them, there just happened to be a rising musical artist that came from Canada, was crazy about the Raptors, and was involved in the team pretty heavily. It was a match made in heaven. Drake was an artist who had already made his mark on the entire North American continent with his albums Thank Me Later, which debuted on the Billboard Top 100 as #1, and Take Care, which won the 2013 Grammy for Best Rap Album. By the time that the team had come into agreement with Drake on his assistance with the rebranding process, he was the most successful rapper in the world, and he was still rising. Coupled with the front office tactics that landed them multiple 51 seasons, the potential fan base reach that the Raptors now held was, and still is, almost invaluable. Drake went on to drop If You're Reading This Is Too Late, Views, More Life, and the single God's Plan, all of which made incredible impacts on the relationship between hip-hop and American culture. It's not a reach at all to say that within the past 3 to 5 years, he's been the most popular musician on the planet. And Toronto's got him to support and promote their team. Come on, man. That's overpowered. What are you talking about? Having a figure of that level isn't new at all in the NBA, but it's forecasted to be the most effective. The most similar case that you could point to when it comes to the level of on-court involvement is that of Spike Lee and the New York Knicks. It means pretty much nothing now, but back in the 1990s, Lee was one of the main attractions of any Knicks series. He even made the defining moment of one Reggie Miller's career. There's even been Jack Nicholson, a wildly famous actor that's held season tickets for the Lakers since the 70s. But most notably of all, there's been Jay-Z, who once owned a minority stake in the Brooklyn Nets before starting a player agency company, and he was in a position most similar to what Drake is in now. But the magic about Drake and his involvement with the Raptors is the age in which he's working in. Of all the times that professional sports have been played, now in 2019 is when it's most connected, and the National Basketball Association is where it's the most connected. There's not an NFL or MLB or Premier League Twitter. That phrase belongs to the NBA. The 2019 NBA playoffs are the epitome of connection in pro sports, anytime and anywhere. And one of the most connected figures in all of social media is the honorary face of the Raptors. Spike Lee and Jack Nicholson simply don't have the fan base that matches up with the majority of social media users. Jay-Z simply doesn't have the visibility that's necessary to make as effective of an impact. But Drake checks off all the boxes. He's willing to act crazy for the cameras. He's willing to be completely visible on whatever platform. He's willing to add fuel to the fire with spontaneous acts, and he's got the world's best platform to do it. If you listen to Drake's music, chances are you're under 25. Not only that, but you're likely to own a Twitter or an Instagram account. Not only that, but you're likely to follow basketball in some shape or form, whether you only know LeBron James and the Warriors or your favorite player is Monte Morris. And that is what the NBA as a whole wants to appeal to, as they are the future of their viewing audience. The more fans that you can get young, the stronger the base will be. The 30 teams of the NBA are in a race of sorts. Whoever can build a structure that can effectively reach and connect with the most amount of young fans will be the one to earn more money for now and for the long run. With Drake as their figurehead, the Raptors are miles ahead of anyone not named Golden State in building a fan base that will last for a long, long time. Bro, we didn't even talk about the memes. Come on.